So this is Monash College. It's a project down in Docklands. Again, another collaboration project led by Lyons, but with a different group of architects. This is a very, very interesting project. So it's a 42,000 square metre fit out of an existing commercial building down the Docklands that fell into a bit of disuse, not disrepair, but not wanting to be tenanted. The project itself is on, that's Collins Street, or the extension of Collins Street that goes past Southern Cross Station. You can see to the top right. And it's a very, very large footprint building. It's 5,000 square metre footprint in the middle of Docklands. The previous corporate campus was a very strange mess and a very hard place to get around and find your way around. This is sort of the plan we inherited at the start of the project, a very vast floor plate, as you can see there. And this is what the group, over 8 different floors, this is just one of them, started to clean up. This is sort of the nature of what a campus could be inside an existing corporate centre. Again, the diversity model, again, we believe very strongly. This is Lyons, brought together the whole group of architects with different skills to adapt to landscape, retail and so forth, including Studiobird, Gilby Brewin and NMBW. So the existing arrival forecourt was a very commercial one. You can see here with a very corporate entry atrium, but we could see the possibilities in the double and triple height space in this realm. And so the new circulation to the entire building, which needs escalators, because we've basically doubled the population of the building by putting students in it. Corporate populations are much lower. So a lot of fire engineering and a lot of new vertical circulation needed to happen. And so the existing entry to the building, which is further down on Collins Street, we actually moved you further up the road, closer to Southern Cross Station, and a new urban entry that actually allowed you to flow into the building without going straight into the escalator stack. This new entry has obviously got some universal access features to it. But obviously we also want to pull out some student activity and tables and chairs and lights to actually activate the building outside on the street to Collins Street. Inside of this, on the retail area, which is just a bit above the main foyer, again, this hasn't been populated with retailers yet. They're yet to come into the back wall, but this will be a future retail environment at the front of the building. So as you enter the building, you actually enter into a very low space, and this is beneath the car park and the retail area above, with a large sort of digital screen wall across the back that obviously brings up different activities that are happening for the building and within the building. And this allows for a massive transfer of students coming in and out of the building, again, up to sort of 5,000 to 6,000 people a day going in and out for different classes. This lower height space connects to the vertical circulation in the atrium, which has also a stair leading to that retail environment we just saw before on that upper level. And I'll just flick over to Matt for the other ground floor spaces.
Sure. So I guess, through this kind of diversity model, we all sort of went through a master planning exercise and worked out the areas that we thought, we could strive in. And so for me, it was, I guess, the performance spaces, or in this case, the event spaces. So my practice does have a background in scenography and set design, so it was kind of an interesting role to play. And so for thinking of that, nearly 5,000 to 6,000 students, they required a series of civic interiors as event spaces. And so what we've produced is a number of informal and formal spaces that work and pivot depending on use. So there's a 400-seater auditorium to the north that has retractable seating, so it can split into a flat floor and become anything it likes. There's a seminar space, there's an amphitheatre, and then there's ample more breakout spaces. So conceptually, I was very interested in spaces of awe and wonder and joy. And so one of the things that we looked at was the transition of light, so sunsets, sunrises, and thinking about astronomical kind of devices, together with subaquatic, so looking at coral reefs, looking at, I guess, this surrealist kind of landscape of textures, patterns, and transitions into places like this. So as I mentioned, informal spaces, so you can play table tennis, then move into the amphitheatre where there's this 1,000 square metre ceiling installation that's composed of chevrons, and you can just see in this image little spherical domes. And yeah, a charge station that allows for recharging your phones and laptops, but also signals this kind of reference back to the astronomical, the sphere. A giant ottoman that doubles as a cuddle puddle for informal spaces. And then finally, the auditorium that has this retractable seating sitting under a double halo.
So I'm just going to try and explain the rest of the 7 floors in the last 3 minutes, which is more about a strategy than trying to show you every space. So the vertical circulation we told you about solves a lot of the population transfers. There was existing open atriums in the building that we transformed by actually shielding them off acoustically and making them, again, more study zones and repurpose zones in the middle, so they became less corporate and more intimate. But these are the types of floor plates that we were dealing with on each level. And the first thing we did was create a new street that linked up the two winter gardens at either end, which funnily enough weren't linked before in the corporate plan. We then created this idea of a loop circulation along with a street that gave wayfinding. You can get really lost in 5,000 square metres of floor plate, so orienteering and wayfinding were really important, and then this allows you to go off into the different neighbourhoods on each end. So the loop is identified by this light. It's a bit like Tron. You can travel a light fantastic to all parts of the building along the loop. The winter gardens themselves had a bit of a rocky corporate garden, sort of arid feel to them. So Glas Urban had a different take on that, which is to make them much more green winter gardens that actually have a lot of fernery and a lot of the things that are more adapted to these cooler interior climates, which are fantastic to be in. At the end of these sort of loops are student kitchens, allow the students again to cook their own food and make their own food away from the retail environments. And then these array of student spaces around the loop that allows for lots of different interactions, again done by different architects on each side, so you get diversity and play within the spaces around the loop. Again, more cuddle spaces, that's the term I was looking for before, cuddle cushions by Studiobird. So again, getting fun into these spaces, getting diversity, but making them very much like terrains that they don't get because they're in a building, like, places outside like grassy sort of spaces. Gilby Brewin actually specifically did places around the core, and we've actually themed these for the different Monash campuses around Melbourne. So it's important to sort of link this as undergraduate learning, pre-learning to get into university at a college. And so the Clayton campus represented by the Menzies building, Caulfield campus by the brutalist architecture and modernist architecture, and then a Peninsula campus through the brick work that you find down in that Frankston campus. So again, just bringing that Monash feel into some of these diverse spaces. Lastly, the campus landscape connects to the Docklands Park over on the side. This is a learning centre and sort of relaxation centre, kind of a respite near the top of the building, allows you to look out through the windows, get some relief from the teaching spaces down below, and it's a bit of a study / informal / sort of calm environment, for getting a bit of relief and outlook out to the green spaces beyond. The general teaching, there's 150 learning spaces in this building. They range from your typical learning spaces, 120 of those, specialist making spaces, a whole music zone, an adaptation zone, collaborative labs for science and learning, and then we are back to the middle. So it's a vast landscape that really has been brought together by a really creative loop of diversity that gets you into a realm of a campus, really.